Thank you, Mrs Harris. It's a great pleasure to serve under your chairmanship, and I want to start by paying tribute to the honourable member for Harlow for securing this important debate. He is proving to be a formidable parliamentarian, and I can say this as a friend, a decent human being to all in all. I also want to start by paying tribute to the young carers across our country. There are an estimated 1 million young carers aged up to 18 in the UK, with many carers aged under 10. And my good friend, the member for Strangford, said, I suspect we're of one mind. I agree with him, because I remember the carers who come to see me in my surgeries. I remember their strength, their resilience, but also how often they go about their responsibilities so quietly and so unassumingly. So from this debate, I want them to know that we in this House, we see you and you matter. Madam Chair, during this debate, it's critical that we don't lose sight of the sacrifices that young carers make every single day. The responsibilities of caring mean young people miss out on social plans, extracurricular activities and their schooling to help support those that they care for. Young carers take time after school, at weekends, and live with a constant worry about the well-being of those under their care. These are enormous burdens, especially for children. I want to start by reflecting on some of the work that was done by the previous government and what was done to support young carers. It was the view of the previous government that young people should be protected from inappropriate and excessive caring responsibilities. We recognised that the important roles that they played went unnoticed, putting their education and childhood aside to care for others. We committed to amending the school census so it included young carers. This raised the visibility of young carers in the school system and gave us a wealth of demographic evidence on the young carer population. This allowed schools to better understand the impact of caring in education, particularly on issues including attendance and absenteeism. In addition, the previous government introduced the pupil premium in 2011, and the funding gave schools additional funding to improve outcomes for children facing disadvantages. This helped young carers gain critical extra support. The previous government also introduced bursaries to help with the cost of education, including travel, books, childcare and residential costs where needs be. In the academic year 23-24, more than £160 million of bursary funding was allocated to institutions to help disadvantaged 16 to 19-year-olds. Furthermore, the previous government introduced the Young Carers in Schools programme, which addressed the need to ensure that schools do more to identify young carers and increase their engagement in school. The programme set out 10 key steps to help schools to identify and support young carers, and each step provides a key practical tool that can be helped to adapt to support the individual school. And lastly, Madam Chair, in 2018, the Conservatives published the Carers Action Plan, which contained proposals to support young carers. The action plan aimed to improve the identification of young carers, which built a rich and informative evidence base to better identify how support can be provided. But as we've heard, despite this, young carers are still under extreme pressure. In all our constituencies, there are hundreds, perhaps thousands of young carers. In the borough of Solihull, my constituency is part of that. For example, the average age of a young carer is 11, and it's estimated that 1 in 5 young people are carers in the borough. Whilst there are fantastic organisations that do excellent work in raising awareness about young carers and what they go through, including young carers in Solihull, debates like this are critical in raising awareness amongst parliamentarians. Young carers often put their lives on hold for others. They're responsible for cooking, cleaning, supporting with schoolwork, and so many more tasks, as has already been laid out in this debate. It makes a life a constant battle, balancing an array of different possibilities. In the education and training context, balancing schoolwork can be particularly hard. It's all too easy to put off that bit of homework because you've had to be up early to care and just want to catch up on a bit of sleep or get that well-deserved rest. The Carers Trust's most recent report from January highlights the concerning fact that 3/4 of young adult carers say their caring roles makes it difficult to take part in training or educational opportunities. Their research shows that young carers are missing on average 23 days of school every year. That's 1 month in total. Come secondary school, over half of young carers are persistently absent. Some of the information we have on this is down to the previous government and our steps to better identify young carers in school settings. And I'm more than happy to work on a cross-party basis to help our young carers. So I'd ask the Minister what work he's doing to help add to the data and what conversations he's having with school leaders to ensure that we build on this important evidence base. The evidence shows that young people who care are missing out on learning opportunities that are available. And in reality, this therefore means they'll be struggling to keep up with their peers and will fall behind for the rest of their lives. When it comes to taking exams, the time spent out in the classroom will no doubt mean that their grades are lower than their peers. So can I ask the Minister what support the Government is taking to help support young carers in their school settings and what plans the Minister has in this regard? We've heard today that the Carers Trust propose every school has a young carer lead. The Honourable Member for Harlow made that point. Has the Minister considered this, and will that be considered as part of their plans going forward? And while in opposition, the now Education Secretary said the Labour Government would ensure young carers' voices, needs and rights and the support that should be made available to them are taken seriously. I did note that in the school's white paper, and this has been mentioned to me by a number of carers, that there were no references to young carers in that post-16 Education and Skills white paper. Would the Minister be able to elaborate on what his thinking is? Perhaps it's to do with the Melbourne report that he might want to elaborate on. In addition, in response to a written question about additional support for young carers in school, the Minister for School Standards stated that the Government are preparing a cross-government action plan for unpaid carers, which will be published later this year. So, on behalf of the opposition, I ask the Minister if he will be able to expand on the timeframe for that and what he considers will be the key principles in those plans. In November 2025, the Government commissioned Alan Milburn to author a report into the number of people not in education, employment or training. And part of this will include a call for evidence from parents and carers for young people. And given the pressures young carers are facing, it is essential that this inquiry looks to find ways to better support young carers in education and training. Young carers, I'm sure he'll agree, cannot be left behind at school because the knock-on effects are substantial. It will lead to more young carers struggling to get into work. Does the Minister recognise that correlation between NEET numbers and the number of young carers? And I would also ask the Minister to highlight the engagement that he's had with DWP in this regard. Madam Chairman, I'm going to conclude my remarks. We've heard some excellent speeches, and then once again I praise the member of Harlow who set out the scene and the case for young carers so eloquently. But again, I want to finish by paying tribute to the young carers who give up so much to care for those in need. It is an amazing sacrifice for every single one of them, and I hope many of them are watching, and I hope they recognise that we think they should be very proud of themselves. And I look forward to hearing from the Minister on what steps the Government is taking.